Welcome back to some new r/malicious compliance stories, where people comply to the letter, but not the spirit of a request. I hope you had a great day. Thanks for all the likes and comments on the last video. And now let's start with the first story. It's called Fridge Cleaning. So, I work part-time at a small community center. I handle basic admin and help tidy up the shared kitchen, which is used by different groups throughout the week. The fridge is always a bit of a war zone. Half-eaten cakes, mystery containers, expired milk, you name it. Last week we had a meeting about cleanliness, and our manager was especially frustrated about the fridge. She said that from now on, anything in the fridge not clearly labeled with a name and date should be thrown away. No questions. I asked her, what if it looks new or expensive? She replied, yes, if it's not labeled, it should be binned. This Monday I did a proper sweep. I tossed out a bunch of stuff. Unlabeled hummus, leftover pizza, a suspicious casserole dish. Then I found a pristine box of individually wrapped pastries, easily worth 15 pounds and from a nice bakery. No name, no date, into the bin it went. About an hour later, chaos. Our manager came in, absolutely livid. Apparently, those were her pastries, brought in for a private workshop later that day. I just apologized and told her that I was simply following her instructions exactly. No label, no date, so I threw it out. She went quiet for a few seconds. Then she mumbled something about clarifying the policy. The fridge is sparkling now, and everything's labeled. The next story is called Force Them. This happened last year. I work for a small startup company. A good company with good leadership. However, like any startup, we are full of ideas but low on process. As we grew our client base, we needed to give small credits, typically rounding errors, less than $10. At this time I was the customer service manager. I had filled out feature change requests in our homegrown system to give our team the ability to process these credits within our system. Those had been ignored due to the mountain of other things our internal software team was behind on. I was told that this wasn't a pressing concern, and that unless the client requested it, I should use a spreadsheet so they could do them all at once. I knew if done this way, it would take a good year for us to tackle this. Furthermore, our clients would be upset. Somehow all the clients requested every single credit right away. Cue our team putting in a ticket for every single credit request the same day, to get processed ASAP. We only had one billing software guy who could handle it. Nice guy, by the way. Due to his title and my knowledge of the industry, this guy makes over 200k annually. So daily he would have to process $2 to $5 credits manually. Remember, he and his team had nothing in the system to do this. So when I say manually, I mean it involved him coding each one. It didn't take long before we had a process. A button we could click to credit on our side. Some of the people I hired still work there. I've since moved teams, having been promoted a couple of times, and we were just joking about it earlier this week. The third story is called Unauthorized Absence. I work in healthcare, so if someone calls in sick, it is almost mandatory that they have to be replaced. I work the night shift and I don't live far from work. It happened 2 times that, when I woke up to get to work, I just didn't feel well, and I knew I wouldn't be able to do my job properly. I didn't do it on purpose. I just don't know I need to call in sick until I wake up, which is about 1 hour before the night shift starts. We have a policy that, if someone calls in sick less than 2 hours before their shift starts, they get the code Unauthorized Absence. It doesn't mean much, but we can get in trouble for it, and it leaves a bad note in the employee file. Well, one day I showed up to work to avoid getting another unauthorized absence. Also, I really thought I could get through my shift. Less than an hour into my shift, a colleague said to me I didn't look well and that I should go back home. My temperature was 39 degrees Celsius, so we called my superior to say I was too sick and couldn't work. They didn't have a choice. They let me go home. For reference, if you get sick during a shift, the code on the schedule is sick from the time you leave work. Now try finding a replacement for me at 1 AM. The evening shift already left, and most people are asleep at that time. The floor where I work has priority for staffing, so they needed to replace me. After I left, the supervisor had to move an employee from another department, and the floor they moved her from stayed understaffed for the night. My colleague knew I didn't call in sick earlier because I didn't want to get another unauthorized absence. So she told the supervisor how stupid that rule is. Calling in sick 2 hours before the shift starts. It doesn't make sense. As if we know in advance that we'll be sick while we are asleep. Also, what if an accident happens on the way to work? I guess they had a meeting or something, because in the following weeks I noticed on my schedule that the 2 unauthorized absence codes from the past few months were replaced with sick. What a coincidence. I guess it's better to call off right before your shift than running it, especially for the graveyard shift where finding a replacement is much harder. The last story is called Last 30 Minutes. I was working at an organization where part of my job was organizing thousands of high quality photos of students' artworks. I worked on them from the main computer and transferred them to our network server. The goal was to make high quality images accessible for other staff remotely. To do it correctly, the process was time consuming. It involved making medium resolution JPEGs from high resolution Photoshop files. That part was easy to do via batch processing. The time-consuming part was that each image needed to be individually labeled. Each required specific details about the artwork and its creator, dimensions, etc. My department manager had emphasized the importance of this task. These labeled images were important for various organizational needs for other staff. But my newish supervisor, Karen, was a major micromanager. She said, "Why are you spending so much time on this project? I only want you to work on this task in the last 30 minutes of your shift." I tried to convince her it wasn't an efficient use of my time. I argued that flexibility in my workflow was necessary. I explained that, on many days, this task would be an ideal fill-in activity, allowing me to stay productive during otherwise slow periods. "Nope, just do it in the last 30 minutes of your shift." "Okay, you got it." Cue the malicious compliance. On some days, there were literally no other productive tasks to carry on with. I could have made great progress on that task. But nope, I would sit there trying to look busy. Or I would walk around the campus with a few sheets of paper in hand. I would try to invent ways to be or look productive. But sadly, in actual fact, I was doing very little at all. This went on for months. Then, one day, I had a call from the department manager. She asked, "Why hasn't this project been completed yet?" I said, "I've been specifically instructed by Karen not to spend any time on this task, except for the last 30 minutes of my shift." Karen didn't stay with the organization for much longer after that. Thanks for watching the video to the end. I hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like, comment and subscribe. And if you have time, watch another one of my videos. Also, if you want to support me further, check out the channel membership or Patreon. And now, I hope you have a great day. See you soon. Bye bye.